Hi, I'm Gary Waterman, and I'm joined by a special guest today, Iseah Montgiraud. And today, Iseah is going to talk to us a little bit about the type of work he's been doing. Welcome, Iseah.
Hey, how's it going, Coach Waterman?
Great to have you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing?
Okay, so right now I'm currently the head strength and conditioning coach of the company LimitlessEra, which I founded. And right now we focus on speed and power-based sports. So we train soccer players, we train football players predominantly, and track and field sprinters as well.
Fantastic. And so, of course, one of the reasons we've got this going here is to support the Ashton Dickson Youth Empowerment Project. And I think it's so important that we give some information to some young athletes and give them an opportunity to grow and develop and some life lessons. So today we're going to ask you about, since we're all dealing with COVID-19 and we've been challenged with ways to train, I'd like to talk to you about 3 different elements of training and maybe get your advice on how an athlete can train under COVID-19. So I'm going to start with speed. What are some things they can do with the speed during our COVID-19 situation?
Okay, well, speed could be the easiest thing for them to develop or to work on, because they could do it anywhere. All they need is a field or, at least 20 yards, and they could work on their speed. So one of the first tips I would definitely recommend is know your drills, your A skip, your B skip, your step over drills, and all that stuff. And what those drills will do is they'll teach you the proper positions and angles you want your body and your limbs to be in, so that you kind of have like a reference point when you're sprinting at higher speed. So I believe in kind of slowing movements down so that the athlete kind of has an idea, and then kind of making our way like as building the speed up as we go by. Another thing is, if you want to run fast, you have to sprint. You have to have enough rest periods during your sprint efforts to be able to sprint maximally. If you're taking 30 seconds in between your reps, you're kind of doing conditioning, you're not really working speed, right? So I like to refer speed as like a maximal bench press. You'll never do a 1 rep max bench press, take 30 seconds and do it again, right? So if we want to maximally exploit like the speed out of our body, we need to have adequate recovery so that we could sprint maximally for the other efforts.
And of course, you mentioned with the social distancing, as you said, it's one of the easier things you can do because you can get out there and space yourself out if you've got a partner and not be near each other and still work on that speed and do some things together, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I got to add too, some things that the athletes can do as well are like plyometrics, which is jump training, which like basically transfers over to sprinting. So they could do like low level ankle hops just to kind of get the body firing, to get the ankle complex involved, which is will help them, like, which will transfer onto their speed. They could do like single broad jump efforts, which will help kind of the athletes utilize the use of hip extension, which is a movement we use at the start. So all these type of activities will help get an athlete faster. You just have to be smart about it and make sure that you have good recovery times.
And so there's no excuses when it comes to speed training under COVID-19 for sure, right?
I would say no, but I have a bias.
Yeah.
That's that's what I favor. I love speed training.
Right, for sure. And so now the second thing I want to ask you about is athletes that want to improve their agility, for those lateral movement sports, what are some things they can do during COVID-19 situation as well?
To work on their agility, to be honest with you, I believe that athletes need to like master the basics. So like side shuffles, cutting, crossover steps, backpedaling into a sprint, side shuffling into a sprint, and really just mastering those basic movements and then add complexity to those movements. So what I mean by complexity, I mean, at first have them do the side shuffle, do side shuffles, do everything I just talked about, and then add a command to it, add a clap to it, add something that will add like a cognitive element to the agility, because agility isn't just like a closed pattern. It's open, right? In a football game, when we're working on our agility, we don't really have a coach saying, okay, at this cone turn here, at this cone turn here. It's the athlete's basically scanning the field and he's making his decisions. But I truly believe in mastering the basic principles of agility, or the basic agility movements, and then adding complexity to those movements.
And once again, in COVID-19, they can social distance and have maybe a partner point a direction and have them react to that direction.
Exactly.
And just like you're talking about, so it's sort of like some basic movements, and then all of a sudden reactionary movements based off pointing or clapping or some sort of stimulus, and that'll make them, force them to react to that. Is that what you're telling us?
Exactly, coach.
Fantastic. Okay, well, the third thing I want to ask you about, and under these times, is probably the most challenging, is that strength and conditioning component. You know, as most athletes, they know it's critical to the development in their program and their sport, or to the performance in their sport. What can they do, given that they can't maybe get into the gym these days like they would normally get into? Any tips on what they can do under COVID-19?
Yeah, I say master the body weight movements, push-ups, lunges, body weight squats, inverted rows. You could go to a park, do some chin-ups, some pull-ups. So really, like, master those movements. And to make the gains last over a long period of time, just use like the principle of progressive overload. So let's say week 1, we're doing 3 sets of 10, maybe week 2, do 3 sets of 12, and gradually increase. You could even increase the time under tension. So let's say we're doing a push-up, you could lower yourself for 3 seconds as opposed to 1 second. And all these things will enable you to continue to get adaptations from your training. Another thing I've implemented earlier during the COVID period is just filling up a bag with books and then doing all of these body weight movements, and then just increasing the weight over time. So that kind of gives you, it's not the best, but it's the best that we have during this time of COVID. So just gradually increasing the weight over time, and not rushing into doing like 500 push-ups on day 1, because then maybe you might need to do 600 in 2 months, or even 700 to get like results, right? So just gradually increase the load to get some adaptations or some results.
So you're saying you got to be smart and creative, I guess, is when it comes to basically adapting and adjusting under these circumstances. But if you want to continue to improve as an athlete, you've got to find a way to get things done, right?
Exactly.
Well, Iseah, thanks for your time. I really appreciate that. I know a lot of young athletes are going to appreciate the words of wisdom and be able to use some of the tips that you've given us. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and anything for the AD Foundation.